Hello everyone, this is Peacock Entertainment and we are back again. I'm going to talk now about Westworld Season 3 finale titled Crisis Theory, and we're going to go deep into spoiler territory now. So if you haven't seen the episode, I advise you to stop watching now, watch the episode, come back to this review shortly afterwards, because we're going to delve deep into the details not only of this episode but also where the show can go forward for its recently announced fourth season. So we pick up at the events of the previous episode, Past Pawn, where essentially Caleb now has the control, or is deemed to have the control, of the essential reset or the reconfiguration of Rheoboam, because this was all part of Dolores's plan that had to be somebody human to be able to kind of reset the whole artificial intelligence and basically the whole structure of society within this current world that we're in. So we also had the event where Dolores was fatally injured by the drone, and that really quick gruesome scene of having her arm blown off that we saw on there after her fight with Maeve, who was also fatally injured as well. So we begin the opening scene where we see both Dolores and Maeve bodies. They're very found bloodied on the floor here by, I'm guessing, one of Sirach's agents, um, who recovers both the bodies. Then we shift forward to William with Bernard and Stubbs, and they're at the petrol station. And William, as we all know now, he's managed to come out of the asylum, rescued by Bernard and Stubbs, and he's on his set mission now. He wants to basically take down Sirach and Dolores, and whoever gets in his way, and he wants to save the world. And Stubbs' prediction came true that they should have dealt with him sooner, because he was going to end up shooting him. And of course he proceeds to do that. He shoots Stubbs, and Bernard comes under heavy fire from William, and Bernard activates his control switch. We saw at the beginning of the season that's what he used to kind of keep himself in check and review to make sure that Dolores wasn't influencing him at all. So he switches that off, and I guess that puts him in some sort of attack mode. So he rises up and he controls William, and then all of a sudden this kind of special ops or police force arrives, the SFPD, I believe, and they give. We find out that one of them is one of the cowboys that was hanging around with the Man in Black back in season 1, if you remember, and he gives Bernard this briefcase that we will find out is very important later on in the episode. So we move forward to Caleb, who finds a container with Dolores' body on here, and it's this really kind of abstract, really kind of vivid scene here where we see Dolores and we see her face has been sort of reopened, and we have that metal kind of exoskeleton. We see that effects that the show did, especially in season 1 and season 2. We see the kind of face open and the metal skeleton on here, and she's walking around with her face still intact, but obviously you have the metal body, and we see her going back into the container and putting the skin layers back onto her body. And she explains at the beginning now that back at the Delos Park there were a group of soldiers who were trained, if you like, to use the hosts as live targets. And we saw Caleb at the beginning, and we get a revelation later on which we'll cover about the whole development that involves. We go back to William, who at this point is really kind of all over the place, and I think this is one of the biggest failures, I think, of the whole season, that they haven't utilised what many deemed as one of the best characters in season 1, William, as the Man in Black. And this season he's kind of been all over the place, very just out of his mind a lot of the time, not really having anything to do. And again, it's just a waste of a great actor such as Ed Harris. We look at the first season, William of course had this big focus of finding the maze, so that's what made him such a compelling character. But here he's all over the place, and we see him back in a kind of hotel, and he wants to basically reactivate his assets and his funds because he's going to save the world on here. And by now the world is full of rioting and everybody kind of blowing up things and setting things alight on fire. We move forward where we see now that Maeve has had her body reconstructed, and she's been given instruction again to hunt down Dolores by Sirach. As we know, the bargain, of course, is that she can reconnect to her daughter. This is again something I've never been convinced of, because they've tried to establish this whole purpose of Maeve, but at the end of the day, she doesn't really have a daughter. It was a memory implant or an experience implant that was put into her, mental simulation on her. It's not really true. So again, it's an emotional attachment that they're trying to build with Maeve, but it doesn't really work on her. And we kind of shifted back to the narrative between Dolores and Caleb, where Dolores is once again just leading the charge, and Caleb was just following her every word. Despite all the things she's done, he never really questions Dolores or what she does on it. He just kind of follows her lead throughout on here. So they're kind of just collecting their forces and these soldiers. And again, it was a bit confusing because they would come across these armed troops and somehow they're with Dolores. They're with her all of a sudden. Again, I was a bit confused who was on whose side, but we were carrying on. And then she sees visions of Hale. Now, as we know, Hale was originally part of an attachment of Dolores, but she somehow had developed real emotions for her son that the original human Charlotte Hale never really had, and that kind of forced her to become disattached, if you like, from Dolores' influence. And then she tried to escape with her family. We saw in that episode where the truck blew up, and we saw that really arresting image of her being burnt and scarred. So she's managed to recover seemingly, but in the first instance, it seems like she's just a mental influence in Dolores' mind, and she's influencing her, and Dolores is a bit disorientated. I actually didn't mind this idea to begin with, because I thought this kind of made sense a bit more, that she was kind of influencing Dolores mentally on here. But we keep going forward, and then Maeve shows up, and then we get a kind of rematch between Dolores and Maeve. I actually thought this fight was much better staged than the previous one, and Dolores escapes, but she kind of turns, I think, on her own soldiers or soldiers behind her. Like I said, it's difficult to determine who's fighting who. And again, I quite like the fight choreography here. These are quite intense scenes where we see Dolores shooting at ankles and knees, and she's fighting off all the soldiers as she falls off the bridge. And I guess this was a good tactic to have her escape Maeve, but they keep fighting, and eventually Dolores defeats Maeve, but she doesn't strike her or she doesn't kill her, again because we're in this kind of really confusing state of characters not really knowing what to do. One minute they're fighting for this side, then they're fighting for that side, and you kind of think that the ruthless nature exhibited by Dolores throughout, she would just take Maeve out and just destroy her, okay? But of course it doesn't really matter, because Maeve can just be rebuilt again at any point. So Dolores defeats Maeve, she moves on, and we see Caleb going through the city. As I mentioned before, it's complete chaos now. Everybody's just rioting and rebelling and protesting. It's never really established what exactly they're protesting about or what they're rioting about. I really hate this concept that just because people have free will, that the only thing they want to do is kind of destroy everything and burn everything to the ground. Now I know, we have pockets of that a lot throughout society, but not everybody is like that. Not everybody is as reckless and kind of violent. In fact, there are people that actually want to have order and a sense of peace throughout society. But this concept throughout the whole season, that everybody, once they kind of snap up this whole more organised control that they've been living under, the first instinct is to burn everything down. I never agreed with that. But we see Caleb kind of reunite with the two um, criminals that he was with at the beginning of the season when they were carrying out their criminal jobs, if you like. And one of the guys gets taken down, which was the other criminal. I think it's a woman with blonde hair to help him out, and then Caleb kind of escapes in the ship. And then we take what I think is an unnecessary detour with Bernard, and we see he's kind of reuniting. I think it's with his wife, that we established in season one, and she's grown a lot old now, and he looks at the pictures of his son. This reconnects again to the scenes that we saw in the first season where Bernard originally had a son. And again, I think just like William, Man in Black, Bernard has been another character that has been very criminally wasted throughout this whole season. He was the character in season one that I think you could really root for. He was, well, in the beginning, that human connection, because he was a man who was struggling to figure out what was going on in the organization that he was working for and trying to uncover the secret operations that was going on within the Delos Park. So he was a character that you could really root for, and of course, this was aided by brilliant acting, as will come with respect, from Jeffrey Wright. But this season, Bernard has really just been a periphery figure. He's just been, really at a distance with the events going on, even though the trailer suggested that he was going to be the main key. More about that in a minute, to kind of defeating Dolores, and we thought he was going to be a central figure, but he hasn't. So this scene here, where he's kind of talking with his son and his wife, it just for me to felt like filler. It just felt, why are we doing this now? It's kind of a bit late in the game when we're in the midst of the conflict to have Bernard have this seemingly emotional scene, and it didn't add anything at all. You're just watching the scene and you're thinking, why are we here? Why are we doing this? This is a scene that we should have had, really, I think, episode 1 or episode 2, to kind of get that emotional connection to Bernard and give him an established motivation that we could have built on throughout the rest of the season. But it just meant nothing. It meant nothing, At the point, like I said, there's bigger things going on here. Why are we sitting here in the house watching Bernard talk to his wife and um, kind of reminisce about his time with his son? It just meant nothing because we never referred to it again in the episode. So it was just a diversionary tactic that had no meaning going forward. So we go back and we see now that Serac has managed to track down and find Dolores again. This is after the fight scenes and the conflict with Maeve, and they've captured her, and they're now asking for the Delos data. We see that Caleb is coming forward, infiltrating I think it's the Insight base, I guess. He fights off the agent that originally in the first scene found both Dolores and Maeve. He takes him down, but then he intercepts Maeve, which of course he's no match for. So he gets up being captured, and he gets brought forward to the facility where he sees Dolores being captured. And I guess this is now the revelation where they reveal to Caleb Dolores's true intentions. And without getting too much into the complexity of all, I guess they run the strategy through Rheoboam of what Dolores was trying to do, and it gives the prediction that the population would have collapsed within 23 years if Dolores's plan comes to fruition on here. So Caleb kind of now starts to question, why was he chosen? Why did Dolores do this to him? What was she really wanting him to do on here? And then we get another revelation that confused me a lot, is that Serac. So as Serac is explaining his motivations, we see now that Maeve is able to predict and repeat his phrases and his words before he says them. And we get this indication, correct me if I'm wrong, that Serac is actually controlled by Rheoboam, that he's kind of the human representation, the human voice or human embodiment that Rheoboam required in order to kind of take over the world. And we see that if you look at the back of his ear, he's kind of got this ear implant or metal device that Rheoboam was using to control him. So again, that took away any human element away from Serac. So he's basically, like you've said, it's just this puppet. He's just basically controlled. So he wasn't really the master of his own destiny. He was just being controlled by Rheoboam himself. And I have to be honest, at this point, with all the events playing out, I'm kind of out of tune. I'm kind of tuning out with how exactly the events played out. I'm sure people will have a better explanation of how this artificial intelligence bonded with Serac and when he did and how it did and why it did it. But I was just out of touch at this point. I was just kind of rolling with things. So essentially they were looking for the key data within Dolores from the Delos Park in order to use to have complete control over human society. But it actually turns out that Dolores didn't have the key data. We have this scene basically where they were looking to wipe out Dolores's memories from the system on here. And we had this scene in the fields where we have Dolores and Maeve discussing it. And it actually turns out that Dolores, of course, didn't want to destroy humanity. She wanted humanity to make that choice for itself, whether to live in free will or destroy the world. Again, it's a very kind of negative way of looking at things. And the big issue I had here, so Dolores was trying to justify her actions to say that she didn't want to destroy the world because she saw the beauty in it, right? She chose to see the beauty of the world. But hang on a minute, Dolores. Throughout this whole season, you've been going around killing people mercilessly, which show no remorse at all for your own devices, for your own intentions. You've had no kind of indication at all of what's going on around you, or any sympathy or empathy to people, or anybody that you might be hurting. You've just been solely single minded and focused on what you want to do, when you want to do it, and how you want to do it. You've had kind of no consideration of the effects that Caleb's been going through following you on your quest. You know, you've been causing all this mayhem, causing all the destruction, but then you're saying you chose to see the beauty of the world. And again, that kind of made no sense. And like many other characters, they've failed really to establish Dolores's main motivations. I thought when we saw the trailers that we were going to have it, then yes, that Dolores wanted to destroy the world and change society, but we were going to get enough depth to see or try to understand her point of view, and at least kind of say, yeah, okay, one instance Dolores may have a point here, so we can at least understand her when she's trying to kind of reconfigure society. But we've had none of that. It's just been, you know, Dolores looking, very sharp in these tight outfits and dresses, and looking very pristine and model like, almost having this Terminator like mindset of just mowing down anybody that stands in her way. So for them to hear her start talking about the beauty of things and seeing the beauty in humanity, it just never really convinced with me. So basically, they find out that she hasn't got the key data, and they wipe away her memories, which I guess somehow managed to wipe away the influence that Sirek had on Rheoboam, and this was able then to have them reset the artificial intelligence, turn it off if you like, destroy it, however way you want to put it, and then we see that Sirach now has lost his device. And another thing that didn't make sense was that he was using this remote control to control Maeve, which, okay, fair enough, but then for some reason it exploded. It exploded. Maeve goes to attack him, and he stops her with the device, and then it explodes in his hands. I don't know if Maeve was able to stop the device or influence it somehow, and then she resumes control, and then he's able to stop Sirach, and they take down his troops. And Sirach is now complaining. He's saying, "Now you don't know what you're doing. This is going to be the end of the world." He starts moaning, and I don't know what we're going to happen to him, whether we're going to see him again in season 4. I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not really bothered at this point. And we basically just then have Bernard, and we find out that he had the key data. He had the kind of key to whatever semblance or sanctuary that was going on here. And we see that he opens the briefcase, and he's got the mind device, which has the key to unlocking the secrets of whatever future that we're gonna go into, presumably in season 4. And he puts himself under the device. We see Stubbs is kind of just sitting there, laughing away, bleeding away in the bathtub. So who knows what will happen to Stubbs in the future. Bernard goes under the device, and then we see the ending scene where Caleb and Maeve are walking out the streets, and all the buildings are exploding, basically confirming now that the artificial intelligence has been shut down and society is free to do what it likes, which of course again means that they want to burn everything down. And yeah, it's kind of a really depressing message, and I guess they wanted to go for a kind of outlandish statement and leave everything open-ended, so we don't know where we're going to go forward for season 4. What's the future going to look like? Who's going to be involved? Is Dolores going to come back? What is Maeve's role going to be in it? I mean, she can't now reconnect with her daughter, so I'm sure they can't pull that narrative again for the 4th season. Is Caleb going to be in it? Is Caleb going to kind of maybe be killed off screen, and they're going to try and feed off another human character going forward for season 4? So that was kind of the summary of the events of this episode on here. Again, I think it's one of those where it's more a fault of the whole season as all, that it hasn't done a very good job of establishing characters' motivations, their purpose. There's been no compelling element to fight this, despite the fact they've gone for a more simplified plot narrative. You know, we don't have the jumbled timelines, if you like, convoluted time avenues of season two. But it just has such a weightlessness feel to it. You just can't connect to any character, and I'll probably remark about this more in the season review on here. But it just, as an episode, felt very flat. This was an episode that was an hour and 15 minutes long, and it just seemed to drag a lot of the times. The fight scenes, okay, they were executed very well, but they had no bite, no real gripping tension to them. And yeah, you're just kind of drifting from each character to the next, just waiting for events to unfold and play out and come to a resolution. So we go forward now. As I mentioned, this will be a spoiler review. So we essentially had two end credit scenes. The first was William, and he goes to one of the Delos facilities, and I'm guessing security isn't high on their priority because he's able to walk in there with a gun, shoot one of the people within the building, and just make his own way to the research lab. And there he meets Hale, who is kind of now reformed herself. We see she's got a scarred arm, obviously still sustaining some sort of effects from what happened to her in the previous episode. And now she's a fully fledged host now. Again, I'm really confused because I thought she was still influenced by Dolores. How is she being able to break free from Dolores's influence? I don't know. Will she turn back into Dolores later on? I don't know. But we get the revelation that there is a host version now of William, and I'm guessing that the original William is now dead. They have a fight. He gets fatally stabbed in the neck, so I'm assuming he's dead. And now we have the host version of William, and he's back in his kind of man in black costume. And we get this scene where we see that Hale now has a whole host of devices ready to start constructing and building hosts, presumably to begin an assault on the world. Again, I'm not sure what the purpose at this point. If the world is kind of descending into chaos, what's the point really of the hosts taking over what's going to be assumingly dystopian and barren society going forward for the next year? The second end credit scene, of course, was Bernard, and he's kind of awoken from being under the influence of the device. He's covered all in dust to begin with, but that all clears away, and we presume that quite a bit of time has passed. So again, there's a couple of questions to be answered as to what society or what future we're going to be going into going forward for season four. So I suppose at the very least there was some sort of interesting questions that could be led into the next season. But overall, again, it just wasn't very compelling throughout. I'm kind of glad we've closed this chapter of season three and that we can move forward to season four whenever they start filming. It was, I think, was it a year to 2 years from season two to season three, so we can assume, obviously, with the current crisis we're in now, we're going to get a similar gap before we see Westworld season four. I'm hearing rumours again that it's going to be another shortened season, maybe only 6 episodes. Remember that season one and season two were 10, and this third season was shortened down to 8. So again, it wouldn't surprise me if this was shortened down to 6 episodes again going forward whenever they decide to complete filming. And we just have to see what happens with season four. I'm assuming it's going to have quite a different look and aesthetic to season three, and again, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see every single cast member returning for season four. So those are my overall thoughts on the finale episode, Crisis Theory for Westworld season three. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Were you happy with this season or this season episode itself? Do you think it wrapped up the story arcs very nicely, or were you kind of disengaged or disconnected from the story overall throughout the whole season and felt that this finale didn't really do anything to kind of re-energize your interest going forward for season four? So let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like and subscribe and help me to grow this channel. I will provide more reviews, including an overall season review of this third season of Westworld, and if we come across any more reports of what's going on with season four, I will make sure to kind of cover that as well. But those are my thoughts on the season three finale review. That's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.